Hi, this is Alan Evitz with the PMP Prep class. Now, we're going to be discussing a lot of difficult and complex situations, but we're going to do it in a simple way. We're going to be talking about how to be successful in managing projects. And the PMP is about managing projects successfully. It's about trying to grab a hold of fairly normal things that we do every day and trying to be successful and elegant in that. Now, our course is going to talk about the basically, we're going to introduce this, and we've all been there. We've all understand that we have to put a framework together. We're going to look at integration of a project. And the idea here is it's integration of the different skill sets that are necessary in a project. We're going to look at the whole idea of a project. What are you trying to do? What is it you want to succeed in? And that's what we're trying to deal with. A project manager is all about success. If you're not about success, don't be a project manager. It's about success. Integration will help us round out that understanding of success. And it will help us to understand it and give us a foundation about project management. Next, we'll look at who are we doing this for? Who are your stakeholders? Who are the people that matter in a project? Projects are about people who matter to you. And if they don't matter to you, then you need to ask yourself a question. Why? Now, in project management formally, our stakeholders are people that are, either pay us money or have a reason to be there. Listen, if I'm a homeowner and you're building my house, I'm a stakeholder. That's the kind of focus that a project manager has. They have a focus that is success-oriented, and the stakeholder is people who matter to them. And that's what we're talking about here. Now, we'll talk about scope. What is scope? Scope. I have a scope. I look in it. Scope is about what you're doing. What are you doing? What are we doing? Scope is an important facet to project management because it's an integral building block that we deal with. Scope is about what it is we're doing, defining it clearly. Am I building a 5-story building or a 20-story building? Am I doing an application that does X or Y? It's all very important. Scope is hugely important in project management because it tells us what we want to look for at the end. At the end, what does it look like? Does it look like this or that? That's scope, and we look at it. And in the PMP process, we look at that. We focus on scope. Time. Things happen in time. We don't deny that. It is a reality. So when you're trying to do something, you have to deal with the time element. How much time do we have? How much time do we have to be successful? And in project management, it's all about success. So how much time is there? Managing the time. We look at time and we look at resources and we look at who we can bring in and we focus on that so that the time is a good thing. Time is not our enemy, it is a reality. And that reality helps us because we understand it. If we think time is our enemy, that it will drive us nuts. So, with the PMP, we try and understand time as a factor, and we drive our projects accordingly. Cost, again, time is cost. If you are spending time on things, you are spending money. Everyone in business knows that. And this certification is not about a generic thing. It's about being in business. And so you have to understand that time is money. You're trying to balance these three elements. When I look over here and I look at scope and time and cost, that's what we're trying to deal with. We're trying to balance that triple restraint of what am I trying to do, how long do I have, and how much do I have to do it. That's project management in a nutshell. If you can do that, you can do project management. Now, can you pass the test to get a PMP? That's what we're going to be talking about. Because the test for the PMP does not test your natural instincts. It tests your ability to take this particular test. And sorry if this makes you uncomfortable, but it's not about your natural intellect. It's about some body of people's feeling about that intellect. But breathe. We've all been there. I passed it. You can too. Just listen to me as we go through this particular way of viewing it, and you can pass it. This has been tried and true, and we've done it before. And I'm here looking at you right now. Breathe. Quality. Another part of the course, quality. Why do you want quality? Think about it. Why is quality important? Why is a better brake important to your car? Why? Think about it. I'm away from home right now, doing this presentation for you. Do you think I want bad brakes on the car that my wife and my daughter are driving? Do you think you want bad quality in the other things that we talk about? Software is about quality. It's about doing the right thing. So we talk about it in project management. It's about quality. We talk about quality as an important factor in life And guess what? We're all doing projects, so we're all dealing with life. So quality is an important part of what we're talking about with this certification. If you don't believe in quality, then I'm sorry, go somewhere else. The PMP certification has a quality factor, and we'll talk about this in detail. All of these factors we'll talk in detail, because if you're just coming to this, you need to understand where the people who came before you are, where they are. Whose shoulders are you standing on? Most of the time, we don't know. Now I'm giving you some perspective. And it's good information. Good information. Human resources, this has been changed to resources management skill set in some of the later versions. And that's okay, because every time I say human resources, I look at you and I go, wait, it's not just the people. It may be that crane you need. Dealt with a situation in Virginia where I was consulting with a group that they were trying to understand human resources or resource management. And what resource management meant to them was not only the bodies they had to put in a project, but the cranes, the heavy equipment that they had to put there. So understand, resource management is very important, because what are you trying to do? We look at scope, time, cost. We have to have people. We have to have things. Things are important. I couldn't be here today without resources outside of the people. I needed planes. I don't live right there. I live in a different state. I need cameras. Think about what we're doing here. I needed a lot of things to make this possible. And most of life is that way. Most of life is not a simple task of falling out of bed and having a cup of coffee. I happen to like coffee, so sorry. But it really isn't. It's about a very complex process. And with that, you need resources, you need people, you need things, you need complicated processes that you are hopefully have a modicum of control over. That's what this is talking about. Communications. I take a deep breath here because I worked with communications my whole life. And I'll look directly at you to say, it is the most important part of project management. It's devalued in some places because they think that we're technologists. And we are. But communication is huge. Huge. In the PMI guides, they say that it's 90% of what we do is communications. Well, and they're probably underestimating it, truthfully. We talk to people verbally, electronically. It's all we do. We try and make sure everyone knows what everyone else is doing. And that may sound simplistic, but it's so not. So communications as a part of this curriculum, as part of what they test you on to be a PMP specialist, a project management professional, is huge. It's a huge thing, and this may be my personal point in this, but don't ever underestimate your communication skills, because your communication skills are what it's all about. Who are you talking to? Why are you talking to them? What are you saying to them? What are you trying to accomplish? Hugely important. We'll talk more later, but my bias is I'm passionate about good communication, and that I have no apology for that, because I think it is one of the critical skills that a project manager brings to the game. Risk. What is risk? Think about it. What is risk? What images come to mind? As I speak these words, I just came from Raleigh, North Carolina, where we had a hurricane come through. What's risk? Within the last 3 years, I've had 2 children, one of which left college and one of which graduated from college. I'm not sure which the most risky. What's risk? What is risk? In our feeling of the PMP, we have specific rules that we wrap around it. We all deal with risk every day. But in PMP, we look at it very specifically with processes and procedures and responses that we do. Risk is what could happen. So, what can happen? The roof could fall in. Is it? No. But it could. But it doesn't. But risk is looking at the things that might happen, things that could happen, and trying to be prepared for them. Do we deal with risk every day? Yes, we do. If you have insurance, that's risk. Do you worry about your kids? That's risk. Just saying. Risk management is an important part of our daily lives, and we deal with it. We just, when we look at it from a project management point of view, we're looking at it the way we always look at it, but you have to be very specific to the corporate group that you're dealing with. And that's what we do. We deal with risk. We look at it quantitatively and qualitatively and a lot of different ways. So we're going to look at risk. We're going to talk about it in detail, and it's not something that should be unusual for you because we deal with risk all the time. Have you ever bought anything? You ever purchased a contract for something? Procurement is just about that. We'll talk about contracts. You bought a house. You have a contract. Surprise! You have a contract. You have an apartment. You have a contract. Surprise! It's all procurement. Now, it's not like we're talking about in corporate, but what we talk about for the PMP is understanding what corporate law and corporate procurement is about. But we'll frame it, we'll compartmentalize it in a way that you can understand. If you're doing procurement all the time, if you're doing RFPs, RFIs, you're doing contracts for days, if you're a lawyer, I will just, bow to you. But if you're a standard project manager, what I was for years, and you're just trying to figure out what are they talking about, we'll talk and you'll get information. You'll get information that'll help you pass the test. I mean, we've kicked around the course outline here, but the reality is this is not about, check that. This is all about skills, but it's not all about skills that everyone would recognize. The PMP prep course that I'm teaching, that I'm looking you in the eye with, is about passing a test so that you can have, the check. And understand that's not a bad thing. I'm not talking about something that you shouldn't want, but we're talking about information. How you use that information is more important than anything. So, the last thing we'll talk about as I look you in the eye and talk about what we're doing here is professional responsibility. Everyone should be responsible for what they do. In the PMP exam, we talk about it. We have questions. What do you do if this happens? What do you do if that happens? It's an ethics exam, if you will. And it's okay, because every profession that has weight should have an ethics exam. And we do it. The PMP does an ethics piece of it. And we'll talk more about how much of it is that part of it as opposed to other parts. But we need to understand that our responsibility as professionals is not insignificant, and we work on that. Hi, we're back. This is Alan Evitz, and we're talking about the PMP prep for your certification to be a project management professional. Well, why? Why? Why go through this? Why are you listening to me? Why do you buy books and look at the tests, and you should take those tests that you see? Well, why? Because it's one of the largest organizations of project managers in the world. So, it's a good thing to be a part of. Now, I am a PMP certified project manager. I have used the PMI, the Certifying Organizations techniques, for over 20 years. I've been certified for about 6 years now. And I'm saying it's not that it teaches you how to be successful, but it does give you a certification that will help you make money, be successful. This is not bad information. This is not useless stuff. This is good stuff that we're talking about. To pass the test, let me tell you, is not about being competent or being intelligent. But understand why the PMP? Why is this a situation where you want to be a part of? It's because it's a very good foundational certification that a lot of project managers have found. A lot of managers who are looking for project managers are looking for. So just, it's a good thing. And it really, if you wrap your hands around that, this is not difficult. This is not rocket science. This is really good stuff. And the information that we're sharing with you, if you take it and you put it in your toolbox, listen to me. No, listen to me. Put it in your toolbox. You may not use it today, but you'll use it. Or you'll have it available to you. If you're 22 years old and you're talking to me, you may not understand what I just said. But if you're 23 years old and you played Little League and you had something said to you later on and you wished you had known it earlier, that's exactly what we're talking about here. We're giving you good information, good knowledge, tools to put in your toolbox. And it's not simply for passing a test, though we're going to work our way to getting there through this program. But the information will help you be a better project manager. And we all manage projects. You know, my latest is my garage. I need to clean my garage. And I'll probably talk about this over the next few hours. But, you know, it is a challenging thing. But we all have challenging things. We have things that pay us money and things that pay us in other ways. You know, my garage is particularly bad, my fault. But who's my stakeholder? Who's the sponsor? Who's the person that gives me success in the cleaning of the garage? My wife. And if everyone out there should understand that the truth of that, when I talk about projects and project management with the PMI, the PMP certification, I'm talking about trying to be successful. And I'll give you techniques, tools, ways of going there, both in terms of the test and in terms of being a successful project manager. And I'll do that without trying to, I mean, it's real. Nothing I do is artificial, really. I mean, I want you to understand that this course is about making you successful. So you want to scream at me, scream at me. And I'll scream back. But the PMI PMP certification, and yes, I'm looking at a screen right here, is very good. It's good for you. It's good for companies. It's well regarded. And I will not teach it if it wasn't. So let's move on. The core knowledge of this certification is pretty much what we've gleaned from, I don't know, 3,000 years of humankind, and we've developed it in the last 100 years, and we've talked about it a lot. PMI only took what we were doing forever and tried to wrap language around it. And wrapping language around it just meant that, we had a way of communicating about it. We had a way of saying, if you're trying to do X, then here's a good direction for it. If I'm mixing concrete, I should understand how long the concrete takes to set. That kind of common sense is what PMI was about. It requires that you understand a certain amount of technology. And in this day and age, everyone should know technologies. So, who takes the test? Who does this training? Well, people already managing projects. So are you a project manager? Are you someone who's out there doing projects in construction, in IT, in software development, in any number of fields? If you're there, you tend to take this certification. You tend to understand the value of the baseline training that it involves. Managers, people, are you managing people? Do you manage people? Do you have people under you? Then you're managing people. Everyone works on projects. It's one of the fundamental things that I live for, is to help people understand that we all work on projects. We all are working on projects. I've mentioned already that, cleaning my garage is a project. Well, that's a personal project, and people tend to devalue them as things that, well, you're doing that in your personal life. Like, you're fixing food for 15 families at a horse show. Done that. They don't think about those as projects. They only think about it when it's a personally incentivized, meaning I get paid money, for something. Well, there are a lot of projects. If you're a manager, I'm looking at the screen and circling manager. If you work in a situation where you have people and you want them to get things done, then you need to think about project management. You need to think about the details that I've mentioned. Things like, risk and communications and scope and time, all of it. Just breathe and think about it. It would be a great certification for you to have. Why? because it would, checkbox. Some people look that way. They look at the PMP as being a checkbox. But it's also skills and a network that you can tap into. And there are a lot of very successful people who you can touch with this. What we're focused on is the certification. And I will tell you, the Primary Institute is looking about certification. Right now, I'm trying to hook you. I'm trying to make you understand that this is good, that this is useful information. Later, we'll get in the weeds with it. We'll talk about the details. And when we get to contracts and we get to a lot of different things, it will be weedish, I will tell you. But breathe. Some of you don't like math. Breathe. Just stay with me and we will get through it, because all of those things are important to know in a level of detail that's important to you. It's a broad scope profession. Project management is. So project management is not one thing. It's not singular. It is diverse. So stay with me. Okay, who takes the test? Test leads. I'll go through these. Development leads. Why would test leads, development leads, scientists? You've heard me. I'm talking about this. People already managing projects, it's important for them to know, PMI. Why would managers, test leads, development leads, scientists, engineers, why would they need to know? Why? They're smart, but they do things. They make things happen. All of them make things happen. If you're a test lead, what is your goal? What do? You wake up in the morning, you get the kids to school, you kiss your wife. It's always my first thing in the morning. Then what? You make things happen. I used to be on the phone with test leads in India. 5 o'clock in the morning, even before I kissed my wife, sorry. But I was on the phone with them, and what was I discussing? Think about the world we live in right now. Was I discussing, how did your day go? No. It was 5:30 in the morning, and I'm talking about how their day went. How did they do today? 10 o'clock at night, I was calling them to go, do you know what you're expected to do tonight? It's all about expectations and fulfilling. Keep that in mind. Who takes the test? People. Everybody can be certified. Not that you have to be, but the information is good. The information is valuable. You can be a more successful person by understanding the information. Contractors. I'd like a few more contractors in my past, meaning the people that built a house or two, to understand things about project management. So it's about who takes the test. You can be developing programming, you can be someone who tests it, you can be an engineer, you can be a project contractor building houses. It's okay. Accountants, some of my favorite people in the world. Accountants. The PMP prep is very good because, and I've learned this from working with accountants for a number of years. They love the rules, but they also love when I talk to them about it's not rigid, it's not formal. You have to, yes, we have rules, but you can do other things. Accountants are great. I've said for years that accountants are some of my favorite people. They, are wonderful, and I won't be too personal, but they're great folks. And they tend to be literal. They like project management because it gives them a flexibility within the literal context. And what I mean by that is that they understand that you have to be X, Y, Z. But getting to X, Y, Z, very literal definitions, is not always as easy as most people think. So I found that accountants can be extremely understanding of project management, because project managers can sometimes tend to be very rigid, and it's interesting. I've trained a lot of accountants in my days, and they are very interesting people in their own right, and they understand project management so well. That's the thing that I embrace with them. Business analysts, this is an easy one. A lot of business analysts in corporate settings become project managers. So training them, it makes sense. Business analysts typically are working on the project, and they work on a project. They work on it and build the requirements, that maybe the return on investment, the ROI, and other things. So they get projects. They tend to be, unfortunately, there tend to be helpers of the project manager in old school thought processes. But they're definitely an asset, if not a fully realized partner. So business analyst, great person to take the test. Bankers, again, you're dealing with numbers. It's a good situation. And there's lots of others. Here's what it takes to actually look at it. And this is the latest numbers. Always double check these numbers with the PMI. PMI.org, but the PMP certification takes a lot of different situations. The biggest is the contact hours. Now, when PMI talks about contact hours, they're talking about how many hours you've had in front of someone like myself, either real or, online, that you have been there. You have seen me talk. You have listened to my voice. And it can be live or it can be an automated online situation. But it's really important that you understand that it's not, the PMP is not for people who are starting out. It's really for people who have been out in the world. And it trips people over. And there are people who are young in college, and I'll say it, that get their PMP certification before they're really ready for it. And understand, if you can get it in college, God bless you. But it's really not designed to be a college final, get your MBA and your PMP and graduate. It's not, it was never looked at that way. So even if you get it, and God bless you if you get it, it was not designed that way. And if you're 25 years old and you have your PMP, like I said, it's a wonderful thing, but the process isn't designed that way. And since we're talking about the process, that's what I'm talking about. It's for people who've been in business, have done things, have been out there, and they're trying to get a certification that validates their experience. That's what it's about. So I'm not trying to devalue education. I have more education than I like to think about. Won't go there now. But understand that when you're looking at this certification, this is a certification about doing stuff. You've been there, you've done it, you got the hours to prove it. You have the training to prove it. This is not, I've spent 4 years, 8 years, 12 years in college, and they're going to give me this degree. Degrees are great, have more than I like to think of, but they're not the only thing. They're not just the thing to hold on to. This gives you an experience-based certification, and it certifies that you are capable in a certain field. And I will tell you, I've known PMP certificate holders that I go, really? Really? You? But I've also known a huge amount, more than most, that had great ability to understand the basics, the core information. And that's what we're talking about. I don't read slides. If you look at this slide, you see what we're talking about. And I don't want to be one of those people that either read this to you because it's been up here for 3 minutes. So if you can't read it in that time, also I want to make sure that you understand there's a CAPM certification. That's a lesser certification. The difference here is if you're thinking about the PMP and the CAPM application, understand that the CAPM, it takes less to get it, but you have to keep taking the test every few years. It's not, you don't just get it renewed. And of course, the PMP, you get it renewed, it takes money, but it doesn't take, it takes money, it takes training. And we'll go down that path. But this is a different certification that you might consider. There's nothing wrong with this, it's just different. Now, we're talking about the PMP Certification Timeline. And it's important to understand that there are certain parameters. Look at this, but go out there and find out what's there now. You should join the PMI before you try and be certified. Why? Because it's cheaper. And understand that this situation that I'm looking at online is not guaranteed for any period of time. So this is within the thing that you need to understand is that within a year of your application, you need to take the test, because if you apply, they expect you to be ready. They expect you to be looking at it. And that's the most important piece of this information that you're looking at. So look at this and understand that the 1 year, and I'm sorry, talking to you, understand that once you decide you want to take the test, study for it and take the test. Do not wait. Length of time, sink in time, does not help you. You need to be focused, understand what's being expected of you, and then take the test. So the year of a application approval to taking the test does not necessarily be a bad thing. You need to do it. I personally took a 4-day boot camp for the PMP exam. And I took it from a company well accredited, and then took the test on the 5th day. Had to drive to another state to do it. But I did it, I succeeded, and I passed the test. Now, is this the example I want to give to everyone? No. There are lots of ways. I have lots of students I've worked with that have taken long periods of time to understand the information and have taken the test in a different type of time frame. What I am inferring and pushing to you is, don't think that you can train for this for years upon years upon years, because that's not good. It is a test. It is something that they have configured, and it's configured for a time frame. You should really try and take the test when you are in that mode of getting certified, being ready to take on the abilities of a PMP certified project manager. So that's the point. Here are some of the monies that the certification has taken, and this is historic information. Look online, see what it costs now. Some of these fees may be different, but they give you a range. They give you an understanding of what it could be, and that's why we put them here. Now, the breakdown is typically in this range. I'm not going to read a slide to you, but understand there are several different process groups within the PMP, the PMI methodology realm, and they break down this way. Now, this may change. This is not an absolute, but it won't be far from it. Percentage one way or another way. The big thing that we're trying to that I want you to understand as a student of this information is that you can't go to this test with an understanding of one thing or another without understanding all of it. And that's what this kind of points to. It slides according to the test, and it will slide in this scenario. But don't blame the test. Understand the information. And as a teacher of many, many years of doing this with you and doing this with other subjects, I can't state that more equivocally. I have a hard time understanding students that want to blame the statistics. So be with me. So the PMP exam. We've looked at that. The exam structure is here. We're looking at that. And it very different, but understand it's better if you're a PMI member. I actually didn't do that. I messed up and didn't get my PMI membership in before I got my PMP exam fee in. Though I'd been using this whole structure of thinking about project and project management had been in my head for a long time. It was, I was one of those people. But look at this and see how it is. There are 200 questions in the exam. If you've ever taken a 200 question exam, it's not easy, but it's limited. And realize, and this is where, when I'm teaching this live, that everyone wants to throw things at me. So understand. 25 questions are experimental and do not count to your score, which means you'll answer 25 questions and you may have gotten them all right, but they won't count. They will not count. So it is multiple choice. The whole idea of this is not short answer, essay, question. It's multiple choice. So the good thing is that you can, guess. The bad thing is that it's multiple choice and you have to discern what answer you give. So that's really what the PMP certification is about. It's not easy to take because of the test style, but it's not unendurable. So, and it is flexible, so you can skip questions and come back to them. It does allow you that flexibility. You can go and say, I don't want to do this one, I'll come back to it. So you can leave the hard questions till last, hard being the difficult questions. And this is from the 5th edition of the PMBOK, which is part of the Project Management Institute's statement of how they want this certification to take place. We look at it, the best idea, best practices of this are to review the answers and before you submit your exam for scoring. So you look at things. I'm sorry, I've been in school forever. I have more degrees than I like to think of. And that's what we've always taught people, right? You gotta look at it, review it. Do you think better now that you've seen it a second time? So look at it. That's what they're saying. when you don't get any marks for not answering questions. So even if it's an absolute guess, answer the question. If I could look at you straight in the eye and go, don't do this, it would be that statement. Answer all the questions. Okay? Whether you're guessing or not doesn't matter. Guessing at the end of the day is as important as anything. Remember, why are we here? Why am I trying to do this test? We're trying to do this test because we want to be successful. And being successful in the test means answering all the questions. Okay? There's 4 hours. It doesn't pause. It's a timer. Be aware. You can get up. Most testing centers allow you to go to the bathroom or whatever. But your time frame is not diminished, meaning you have 4 hours. So I would expect most people to take the 4 hours and use it effectively. There is a tutorial. In most testing centers, there's a windowed environment that teaches you how you're supposed to answer the questions and will lead you through the program. And it's not timed, but understand that it's a different part of what we're talking about here. Here is the breakdown of the CAPM. Here is maintaining your certification. So the type of questions that we talk about with this exam, situational. You're a project manager, everything's situational. What are you doing? When are you doing it? What are the factors involved? We have computational. We're looking here at math questions. And if you're a project manager, you're going to have to do math. You have some amount of math because you're dealing with hours, which are numbers, budget, again, numbers, and you may have other things within your realm that are computational, things that are numbers. If you are not a numbers person, project management is not necessarily to be avoided, but you should understand that element of it. People who do project management can deal with numbers. They can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And if you have a hard time with it, married one, don't worry. But it's not something you need to focus on. Or you need to have someone in your team who can do it, because it's important. That said, you're taking a test. The test will grade you on computational skills. And I can't do anything about that. Only you can. Understand the type of computations you have to do, and be capable to do them. That's the important thing. Only a part of the test. What do we have else? We have memory, recall. You have lots of stuff that we're going to throw at you in the next few hours. And you have to be able to recall certain features, figures, situations, relationships, who relates to what. And it's all about trying to be better educated in this particular field. We also have diagramming. You're going to have to do some diagrams, and that's important to project management. You may have more than one answer correct. Be prepared for that. Be prepared to go, in my world, it was this way, and there's other answers. Your way, the way it worked in your world, may not be what PMI says is correct. The way it worked in your world may not be how the governing organization thinks is correct. That's okay. Remember, what's your goal? Your goal is to pass a test and to get your certification. So don't breathe, look forward. Double negatives, they do this all over the place. It's one of those test-taking things. So look at the test. Double negatives, be aware of them. Just be aware. They're something that's done. They have long-winded questions. The questions can be huge, huge. But the point of the question can be small. So, what's the smart person's quest here? It's to look at a long-worded question and go, did they give me too many words? Can I look at this simply? What is the question? And it should be distinct, short. Look for that, because they will throw a lot of information that's not necessary to answer the question. So look for the question first, then look for the information. Also, it's become a part of the test is a correct answer for another question. That sounds weird, but if you look at the questions that we've seen in the PMI exam, there's a lot of questions that will give you answers for questions that were asked before. Data similar, it varies. But just be aware that, you know, we've talked about this kind of information before, and just not jump to a question, an answer to a question, because you've seen the information before. And the other thing is that you'll see things that are simply incredible, impossible, not going to happen, however you want to put it. It just isn't going to happen. So there are a lot of answers to questions that the test will put there. And realize it's a multiple choice, 4 possibles, and they will put a lot of things that will tend to confuse people. And when you're stressed out, which I was, you will be, You need to be aware, and you need to breathe, and you need to look and think. As long as you do that, you'll be fine. There are specific things to know about the PMP exam. When you're taking the project management professional exam, you have to know a few things. You're in PMI land. That's Project Management Institute. It's their test. So you have to kind of sort of be there. And that's not a bad place, because most of us who have been project managers have been there for a long time. So what we're trying to do with the PMP prep exam is, when you look at it, you have to look at it from that perspective. It's a unique perspective. It's not from other places, best I can say. And when you look at the exam, it's answer everything, even if you guess. You guess, it's okay. If you don't guess, you get it wrong. So answer everything. Sometimes they will give you a calculator because there are calculations that need to be done. Sometimes they don't. When you get to the testing center, you need to talk to the people and find out what exactly they're going to give you and what you can use. It's really a place-by-place type of calculation. Take the whole time. If you quit early, you lose. Look at the exam, take the whole time, answer all the questions. It's a very important piece of this, and I can't state it too few times. Take the whole time, okay? There is a tutorial. What happens when you go into the test, they give you a tutorial. It teaches you what you will be seeing, how the test is laid out, etc. Do it. Don't think you're smarter than the test. Take the tutorial. Take the 15 minutes to understand what they're trying to test you on. It will do you a benefit. It has an absolute cause and effect to passing the test. And this is all about passing a test for the PMP. I keep this for last. It says, read the question first. It's for everybody who blew everything else. Read the question first. What does that mean? Read the question first. I read the question. No. What are they asking you? What piece of information are they trying to ask you? Look for it. Reading the question first does not mean, I read something with a question mark after it. It means reading the intent of the question first. Do you hear me? Read the question first. Breathe, process, and answer. Yes, this is a short exam. but it's not that short that you need to leave your intellect at home. So read the question first. Read it. Train yourself to read it first. Oh, there's the answer. You're not training for a question. You're training for an exam. So read the question first, hear it, absorb it, and then move on. There are a lot of potential answers. And read all of them, because you may get to the last one and go, oh, that's it. This is typical test scenario. So you need to breathe and read. But don't assume that you know the answer because you read it in answer 2. You need to know you know the answer because you read it and you've read answer 5. That's the difference. So read all the answers. How do you learn? We're sitting here talking about a test, but how do you learn? How do you learn? Sorry. You can't talk to me, but I can talk to you. So I'll tell you how certain people learn. They learn through words they hear. They learn through words they see. They learn a lot of ways. Be aware of how you learn. Project management is not for the faint of heart. It's not for people who are, you don't go, I want to be a project manager, or I want to change tires for a job. There's nothing wrong with changing tires. But it's a different skill set. Just saying. Look at me as I talk to you. When you look at evaluating your personal learning style, do you need to be shown it? Do you need to have your hands wrapped around it? Do you need to have, can someone tell you what you need to do and you get it right away? And I'm not, this is not a dynamic of, well, now I know it, or no, I don't. It's not that simple. But have a clue. Have a clue. We're all on a scale. We're all building to what we can be. So when I say evaluate your personal learning style, have a clue of what that is. A clue. Just a clue. Just something you can wrap your hands around a little bit. And anyone who is smart enough to understand those words will understand it. And if you don't, then there's materials that we'll talk about here. And take some notes. Write some things down. If I've challenged you a few ways, take some notes. Go, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Write it down. Say, on this point, he didn't know what he was talking about. If I don't know what I'm talking about, you need to tell me. I'm one of the few people in the world you can Google. If you know my first and last name, I'm right there. So, take notes. Look at the material. Look at the material. Just don't be one of those people who goes, well, I heard it a little bit on this side, but I didn't. What? Look at the material. Question. If you're a project manager, you look to be successful. Be successful. You want a PMP? Be successful. Earn it. Figure it out. If you can't, okay. You're not part of that group. Review the materials and take notes. If you think that's not within your realm, go somewhere else. There are a lot of participants' guides in this realm of learning about PMP training. And if I seem like I'm pushing back and going, oh, it's like if you haven't found one yet, look more. Look more. There are guides by people who have died who felt significantly motivated to write things. And I say that I'm really trying not to crash on your parade. And if you think I am, you need to get out more. Breathe. Look forward, not in the rearview mirror. And figure it out. We have great techniques that we're trying to teach you. We're trying to bring to you. We're trying to make available to you. Now, what's a technique? Say it out loud. What's a technique? Oh. You can't vocalize it? And if you have, God bless you. Because there's a lot of people who don't know techniques and tools. And if you figured it out, then look me straight in the eye and understand I'm with you. A tool, a technique, is something that people have figured out makes our life easier. Why do we have printers? Why don't we just type the papers up? It's because a printer is an easier way of doing it. Project management is an easier way of doing it. And that's why we do it. So, look at the material. One of the ways that you can look at this brain dump kind of idea, we've all heard of it, is that you dump what's in your brain. What does that mean? It means that you are looking at what you have wrapped around your brain, short term, and you throw it onto paper. That's a good thing for a test. That's what we're doing. We're taking a test. A test. PMP is a test. So, we employ memory tricks. We enjoy the fact that our brain can hang on to one idea associated with another idea. And we link those two. We love it in a lot of situations that we deal with. Here's one where we can make money. PMP is a profitable situation. So, we employ it. Mnemonics. What's mnemonics? It has an M and an N before it. I'm from the South, forgive me, but that just means that it's mnemonics. And it's a memory trick. It's talking about sounds. And I'm talking to you slowly and closely in this. It's mnemonics. My sound engineer is probably going to yell at me in about 5 minutes if she doesn't giggle shortly. And she'll do that because I'm being weird and strange. Mnemonics means that you use sounds to help you remember things. Sounds that help you remember things. Word association. Word play. Same situation. Mnemonics is a fancier, more academic way of saying wordplay, word association. Okay, if you hear the word numeral and you hear the word mnemonic, they sound alike? Maybe. If you hear the word Amy and you hear the word Amelia, do they sound alike? What do they have in common, and why would you think they sound alike? There's a lot of words that we use. And the idea here is to find things that work for you, that are important, that are meaningful. And when we're talking about training, it doesn't matter if it means something for me. My examples were for me. And you may go, that didn't really mean anything for me. What means something for you? Katie? I don't know. Look at it. Think about it. If something has a root cause, heartfelt piece, then your word association can mean something to you. So just look at that. Common exam themes. Well, we have a couple of them that pop out at us. One is the proactive PM. In the exam, the proactive PM is a huge thing that the exam looks at. It's like they want you to think. Did you get that? Think. Proactive PM. When I look at this, I think of thinking proactively, not doing proactively. What does that mean? It means that when you are proactive, you need to keep your brain proactive, not simply forcing things forward. If I were forcing things forward, it would mean that I am making things happen that shouldn't happen. So, proactive PM really means that you're thinking proactively. You're trying to be proactive. You're working proactively. You're not just simply throwing things out there. Okay, you caught me. I'm thinking about when someone was proactive to me, and it became a matter of highly charged emails to me, saying things that they didn't really mean, but they were trying to push their agenda or their project's agenda forward. So, when you talk about proactive PM, you really need to think about the whole picture. What am I trying to do? What am I trying to accomplish? Not, am I getting my job accomplished without the other people's? Note, PM has authority. There's several themes in the PMP. Sorry, whenever I see this one, I sort of touch my nose because, you know, that's my mustache line. And I wore a mustache as long as, you know, Tom Selleck did. And the problem is with the PM has authority is that we never have authority. PMs are notoriously lacking in authority, which is part of the nature of the beast. So just you embrace it. You embrace the fact that no one takes orders from me. No one. But you embrace it. I used to tell my teams that they would, I remember they would go like, you know, we screwed up here, and I was like, I'd look them straight in the eye and tell them, no, you didn't. I'm the project manager. My fault. Tell them it was me. And they would look at me and they would go, really? It was you? I said, I'm the project manager. It's all my fault. And these junior people would love it. Why did I do that? Why did it work? Because ownership is important. Being the owner of stuff. Not important stuff, but just stuff is important. People embrace it. They love it. And it's not only do they love it, it's just important. Like, being a project manager, the PM has authority. Yes, you have authority, but you have no power. You have authority. You have no power. You have no power, but you have authority. When you reach the understanding of what that really means, you can be a project manager or a parent. It works both ways. Don't you want experts engaged? The question most of us have, and I have it every day of my life, is who is an expert, who isn't? And in projects, we get weird with experts. PMs, project managers, look for experts. In the exam, we always look for experts. We look for people who should know more than us. Here's the trick. In the exam, anyone who they say is an expert is. Even if they're an idiot. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Even if they don't know what they're talking about, they're an expert. It's part of the exam. It's this, if nothing else, if you get nothing else from this this video, this class, look at me. PMI tries to make experts very important, and they are. But they're no more important than you are. But in the test, understand, in the test that you're taking, they will try and make them the most important thing in the world. Experts are engaged, they are put in place, they are everything you need to know. Now, I'm trying to let you understand how to take the test to be successful. When you want to be a project manager, that's a different question. But I do believe in the test. I do believe in the qualifications. Experts are important. Well, communication is a key. Communication is how we do things. There's a person that you can't see over on the side here who is communicating with me momentarily, regularly, will be throwing things at me momentarily. The point is, communication is how we do things. So it's very important. To the exam, they look at it very importantly. And why not? My question is, why is this remarkable that communication is important to project management? It is everything to project management. It's everything to everything I do in life. You want to look at this? Ask yourself if you communicate to your spouse well. That will tell you the health of your relationship. If you don't communicate well, I've been there. If you do, good. It's key. Good for project management. So, historical information. Historical information. What does that mean to you? Think about it. I'll give you five seconds. Historical. When did you start your history? Did you start it at World War II, World War I, or the pyramids? Think about it. You need to understand that history lasted a long time. And stakeholder needs. Now, where do you want to look? I don't know. I'm looking on my screen for stakeholders. Do you think stakeholders exist in a vacuum? They don't exist in real life, or you can just ignore them? I don't know. In project management, in good project management, stakeholders are right in front of you. I mean, they are in your face. So breathe and look for them. Anyway, these are common exam themes. These are things that are put right in front of you. And the stakeholder is more put in front of you now because it's new. It's a new knowledge area. So breathe, all of you out there. And you're taking a test about project management. The last theme here is project is primary. Well, of course it is. Projects are the primary focus of a project manager. Whatever you're working on. You know, to me, it was a duh moment. You know, one of those, duh, it's a project. If you have a problem with that, if you think that something else has more priority than the project you're working on, if you're the project manager, just look at it. Look at what you're doing. If you think the project you're working on is less important or more important than the company, you need to think through what you're trying to deal with. Projects are part of the corporate vision. Enough said. The next common theme is options are provided. In the exam, they give you options. Now, why would someone wanting to grade you provide you with an option? Well, it's because that options are real. Options are lifelike. So options are provided because you have to choose between the options. You have to go A or B, or in their case, A, B, C, or D. Realize that's how they create this exam. That's what they're trying to do. We'll talk about the details of what the meaning of the options are later. But right now, understand, as you wrap your mind around the exam, that it's not easy. It's not unsurmountable at all. But it's not like they create a clear-cut, easily defined answer. Now, as they look at things, the work breakdown structure, WBS, work breakdown structure, WBS, is defined as planning. So any time that you would look at the test and you see WBS referenced, it's the planning. And work breakdown structure is the planning of a project if you're going in that direction. So it makes sense. So just understand that that particular facet, that terminology of WBS is what is defining planning. So if it's referenced in a question that the WBS does XYZ, you know where it is. If you don't know what a WBS is, don't take the test. You need to understand work breakdown structure. Breathe, breathe. It's okay. Corrective action is an interesting concept. I'm looking at it here on the common exam themes. Corrective action is one of those things that in project management world we do often. Few times we note directly. We do it sometimes, and understand it's something happened and then we fixed it. That's corrective action. Understand something happened. We may or may not have expected it, predicted or non-predicted, and then we fixed it. Corrective action. Corrective. We corrected a problem. Corrective action. We did something. So corrective action is about correcting things with an action. With an action. It's typical of projects. Why? Why? Why would we correct things? We've planned everything. Projects are about, putting everything in order. Boom, boom, boom. It's because It's real people doing real things in real time. It's real people doing real things in real time. And trust me, as a project manager for 20 plus years, I understand that. When we talk corrective action in this phase of the exam to test people, can you be a project manager? Are you capable? Do you have the mental intelligence? Absolutely, it's a good question. Some of the things I go, Here, yeah, be able to deal with things that go wrong. So, corrective action, part of the exam, very important theme. And they talk about it. I lose track sometimes. I lose track with you that I'm talking about how to make you a better project manager. The point of this class is to make you pass the test. But I have a hard time because I lose track because I want you to be a good project manager, a good person who is solving problems, is doing corrective action, etc. So breathe, stay with me, because I sometimes go down a path, and you will too, and you will. Because every project manager I've ever gone down this journey with will challenge me to understand their frustration that it's not what I do for a living. And it's not. Breathe. Stay with me. Next. Documentation, one of my favorites. Documentation in the test sense, and you see the smile. I'm sorry, I can't hide it. The documentation for the test is important, and it is in most project management methodologies. And I still can't stop smiling. Look at me. I think it's important, and I love the agile methodologies that I'll talk about later in the week when it comes to documentation. Documentation is a good thing as long as it's handled rationally. And I won't go any further than that right now. And breathe with me. It's like documentation is like knowing, you need to know where your driver's license is. That's documentation. You need to know where your passport is. But some stuff you just, is my car working? Do I need to know where my alternator is? As long as that guy knows, why do I need to know? Just saying. Breathe. Understand. And it is important with this test. So documentation is an important theme. So I state one thing as a person to you, as a physical project manager, and I will look at you straight in the eye and go, breathe, understand it, breathe, understand it, and understand it. But I may not if you trip over that question, I will not be the person to point at you and go, "You're wrong." Breathe. Get the question right. That's what we're about. Get the question correct. Sign off is a must. Sign off must happen. Sign off is something you do. Why? Why is sign off a must? Well, I'll give you the two answers. One is that you want to make sure that everything is signed off, that everything that you're doing has the people that are appropriate signing it off. Here's one of my projects. It's my project that's an ongoing project. Just bear with me. I'm trying to clean my garage. And who do you think is the main sponsor and stakeholder in that project? If you are a man or a woman who has a person that they're connected to, you probably had figured this out. Well, it's my wife. I'm sorry. It's my significant other. It's my person. And they are the major stakeholder, sponsor, roll it up in. I have to have a sign-off. Hear me. I have to have their sign-off. What does that mean? That means that if my garage is not clean to their specification, I don't get their sign-off. In any project that you're doing, if you don't have the sign-off of the significant stakeholder, you are in trouble. So when we look at this as a theme within the exam, to me, it makes sense to think about it. Who is the common sponsor? Whose sign-off is a must? If you don't know that, or you don't take that into, if you don't know that as a project manager, or you don't take that into account when you look at a question, you're in trouble. Gold plating, what does it mean? It means that they have made something look better than it really is. It looks better than it really is. It's not gold, but they'll make it look good. And why would they do that? Let's think. You're signing their paycheck. You may have been on the sign-off or the, I don't know. They make it look better for a number of reasons. But gold plating is never good in project management. Your job as a project manager is to deliver exactly what you've agreed to and nothing more. If you deliver more than what you have delivered, you are, in definition, gold plating. So let me give you a couple of examples just to understand. If I am delivering a point of sale system means you walk into a store and it's the system that gives you the transaction. You run your card through it. Nowadays it's through the chip, or run it, and you get a transaction. What would gold plating be? Well, gold plating would be if they gave you something for making that transaction with that piece of plastic. That could be gold plating. So it's interesting how it can be. It can be a lot of different transactions or things that result in gold plating. But gold plating, it can be as easy as you give someone more than they wanted, more than they thought they were going to get. If you gave them 12% interest instead of 10%, can be very small. In review, the PMP is a certification for a certified project management professional that is what is looked for in the business these days. And what we're suggesting is going for it. We're going to give you all the information you need to get that kind of certification. So stay with us. Listen to me. It's going to be good. I'm looking at questions over here and I'm like, yeah, no questions. You need to be a PMP certified person if you want to be a project manager in the American workforce right now.